welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's show is a compilation of 5 super scary stories straight from Reddit. I hope you guys enjoy this. Please let me know in the comments below if you prefer the shorter stories or if you prefer something like this, a compilation of 5 short stories. Of course, please do like, comment, share and subscribe if you haven't done so already. The first story of tonight's show is entitled Our Sasquatch Experience in Washington State. Let's get straight into that. A bit of background. We're at Airbnb in Washington State, not far from Mount Rainier National Park. Our Airbnb host was outside on her horse pasture feeding her horse. We all went outside to greet her and thank her for accommodating us. She lived across the street, so she offered to show us her property with more horses and a few other farm animals. We pass her house and are now in her backyard. Our host, let's call her Michelle, gets us in a circle and whispers, "So, do you guys want to go back home with the story?" Intrigued, we say yes, and we had no idea what we were in for. She takes us past one of her 2 barns and we walk into her wooded backyard along a foot trail that she takes her horses on daily. About 100 feet in, she stops us. "Look down," she says. We see what appears to be a footprint, yet wider and longer than any of a human's. It was especially long, so whoever left the print must have slipped in the mud. There were toe imprints as well. She then begins to tell us that the imprint was made by none other than a Sasquatch. While huddled around the imprint, she tells us how she got her house and her second property across the street at Airbnb. You might think I'm crazy, but if I knew about their existence, I would have never moved here. Do you want to see more? Of course we, a group of 20-something-year-olds, do, so Michelle takes us further down the path. At this point, I was feeling a bit uncertain about what was coming or about to happen. Hair stood up on my arms and I got the chills. I kid you not, seconds later, Michelle says to us, "Right, at about this point here is where you might feel some chills or your hair sticking up." She was spot on here. I was feeling very uneasy and about going forward, yet we walk a little bit further down the path. "They had asked me to bring you guys here. They wanted to say hello," Michelle told us. "I never brought any of my guests back here before, but it seemed important to show this to you guys." We had no idea if we were going to see anything, and as it was getting darker and darker out, we stopped for more conversation, when Michelle stopped us from talking. "Shh, shh." We didn't hear anything. We were all quiet when Michelle asked us something peculiar. "Has any of you recently lost a brother? Or have any of you ever experienced psychic abilities?" We all say no. It felt a little awkward and we moved on. We go to the last point in our walk and she was astonished. She had laid some sticks down earlier in the day and the arrangement of the sticks had changed. "They're always mischievous and like to move things around and mess with us," Michelle explained. She also says she was laying a deceased chicken right at that spot earlier in the day and now it was gone. The Sasquatch people must have taken them, she said. She often leaves them gifts, usually food, right here, and they're gone before she knows it. At this point, I'm feeling skeptical about all of this. I'm not a believer, but I also didn't have any reason not to believe any of this. We were all quiet. Out of nowhere, we hear a noise far back in the woods. It sounded like an owl's hoot, but very, very far away. Michelle said, "Oh, that's just an owl." But then she took it back when we heard the next noise. I can't recreate the noise in person, nor can I recreate it in my head, but I'll do my best to describe it. It sounded like, well, like a monkey's ooh ooh ah ah, mixed with a laugh of a hyena. Michelle assured us they meant no harm, and that was definitely them talking to us. She yells back in English to greet them, because apparently they can understand our language as well. We head back to the Airbnb and talk about nothing other than our experience for no less than 2 hours, while drinking of course. I'm with my best friends, and one of them makes it their mission to go back into the woods to search for the Squatch himself. The other one tags along, but I stay behind because I didn't really want much to do with it. They leave, and I go grab a joint to smoke out on the deck. It was silent. Nothing but me, the cabin, and the beautiful Washington State wilderness. Then I heard it again. The same owl hoot in the distance, followed by the eerie sounding monkey noises. I was alone and stayed up another hour until my friends returned and told them I had heard it again. Yet, strangely, they didn't. Before I went to bed, I googled something along the lines of Washington State creepy laugh animal, and the first result was an article titled Bigfoot or Animals, hair-raising sounds coming from a swamp or Indian reservation in Oregon. Hope you guys enjoyed that story. Let's get straight into number two. Number two story is entitled Unsettling, Repressed Hiking Memory. I posted this some time ago, but I guess I just wanted some more dialogue about whatever the hell happened. Messing around on Reddit, I ended up on the search and rescue guys' posts and read some stuff. Oh boy, did that shit bring up some super fucking repressed memory. Actually, I got sick to my stomach and all clammy and lightheaded. This is the incident, to the best of my memory, that I experienced with my now passed away friend I'll call James. The best cure is to talk about it, so yeah. Early 2000s, I want to say summer of 2002, at an out-of-state campout for the life, rank and above Boy Scout members. Campsite was never near the West Virginia border. Heavily wooded, mountainish land and oh so beautiful hiking areas. Our scout troop was about halfway into our week-long camping trip when, about mid-morning, James and I left for our duo hike. We had spotted this small stream the day prior, about 10 minutes north of the camp, and wanted to follow it east. We figured we'd use it as an easy to follow path back to camp, especially with the orange markers we'd put up. Even the adults we mentioned it to said it was fine. The first couple of hours hiking next to the stream was absolutely wonderful. James and I cracking jokes, talking about girls, etc. After a break for a quick lunch, I figured we'd head back, but James noticed a pretty choice rocky hill. Some steep parts to actually climb, but gradual enough to walk carefully if I needed. I voiced some concern for getting away from the stream, but James was a year older, and I didn't want to be a wet blanket. I caved in and followed after him. I climbed up after him, slower than he had, and I lost sight of him since he continued on over the top. I felt my skin itching, like after you sweat a bunch and you lay on the grass, but about 5 times worse. I ignored it because itching and such was just a thing when camping. Once I made it to the top though, the itching stopped. I spotted James and more importantly took in the view. The overall area looked like a sort of bowl, rocky hills forming the outside of a relatively unrocky inner area or surface. The bottom was a grassy area, the size of half a basketball court, no trees, except for a ragged car-sized hole in the ground. James was already walking slowly down the hill, towards the centre, but I didn't even call out to him. I just stood there staring at the fucking grassy area with an uneven oval hole. Next thing I knew, my foot slipped and I managed to cut the inside of my mouth on my braces, bloody in my mouth. The fresh wave of pain sharpened my senses and I fucking panicked. James was almost down at the bottom and I was already halfway down the hill somehow. I didn't hear anything, like anything including the stream, which should have been not 30 to 50 yards away. I booked it down the hill and grabbed James' pack and yanked him a bit to get his attention. He stopped, but didn't even turn towards me. My mouth hurt too much to move it and talk, so I just kept hold of his pack and lead dragged him back up the hill and down the other side. It wasn't until back at the stream did I realise I had been, and I was still crying, like openly weeping. I thought it was just my mouth pain, but I finally looked at James. He was as white as a damn sheet, tears pouring down his face. We stayed like that for a bit and then finally walked back to camp in silence, other than a few quick comments to each other. The odd part is that the rest of the week was great. Stayed with the group and James and I shrugged it off as semi-dehydrated, heat-induced incident. Not much else happened in regards to the incident. Got really into high school sports and dropped scouting. I did meet up with my old scout friends at James's funeral the summer before college, which was particularly tragic because it was a suicide and the guy was always full of jokes. Thanks for reading, everyone. Richard. I hope you guys enjoyed that story. On to number 3 now. Number 3's story is entitled A Creepy Experience While Meditating. Way back in my late teens, I was learning to meditate. My mentor in the field was taking me beyond passive meditation, which only centers. I was being taught to constrict my awareness down to the mathematical point and to cause it to float outward from my brow, floating above my head. Then to send it out across the land to visit family, etc., projecting my consciousness elsewhere. I became very proficient at the process. Then, one night while my whole family was away visiting friends, I decided I would try and go all the way to my grandparents' house in another state. As I reached the stage where my consciousness was floating above my head, an acute chill went through my whole being. Across the room, I saw what I can best describe as a blob of extreme black nothingness, and the entire room reeked of the smell of rotten eggs. In a panic, the mote that was my consciousness fell back into my body, and I sat bolt upright, my pulse thundering in my blood vessels. Every single light in my house snapped on simultaneously. The sense of dread and evil was so absolute and pervasive that I could not sleep until the sun came up with the dawn. I have not tried to project my consciousness out of my body again. I took that experience as my warning of the dangers. If you go out, something else can come in, and it may not let you back into your own body. The thing that stands out most is the way all the lights turned on in my house. All the rest can ultimately be explained as your own imaginings. It could be just a form of self-hypnosis or a reverie that is drifting into a form of dreaming. But every light switch in a large ranch house simultaneously snapping on speaks to a charged event. I hope you guys enjoyed that story. Let's get straight on to story number 4, which is entitled Rest Stop, Don't Stop. So, I was driving by myself on a highway in Maine, cranking killer tunes, slamming Mountain Dew, big gulps and sucking back American Spirit lights. Decided to go on a hog wild at Taco Bell drive-thru and ordered an enormous amount of food, extra fixings. So, I'm devouring the Taco Bell, had a full menu assortment. Of course, about 40 minutes after I ate, my stomach began seizing and cramping. There was to be no refunds, no returns. Luckily, I see a rest stop coming up in about 2 miles, so I floor it and pull in. It's about 1:30 AM and it seems pretty vacant. There is one other vehicle in the lot. Window steamed up. I assume it's just another road tripper who had pulled over to rub one out. We've all been there, no judgment. I get out of the car and run into the men's room. I was holding the bottom of my pants when I ran in because I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. Finally, I'm in the stall and it's not a good scene. Figuring I would be in there for a while, I brought my smokes and a copy of Mad magazine. I always keep it in my car for emergencies like this. I'm working on my 4th American Spirit when I hear another person come in. Footsteps stop. I hear him taking a deep breath in and out. I holler out, "Hey man, I'd keep those breaths shallow." No response. I see the dude's feet right in front of the stall, and they're fucking huge. Got to be at least size 17, and dirty as shit too. I sit in silence, staring at these huge shoes. Sudden arse blast squeeze out, and the sound echoes in the empty restroom. All of a sudden, the guy starts pounding on the door and grabbing the top and shaking it. "I'll be out in a minute, you spaz," I screamed. Then it stops. I hear the footsteps again, and then a lot of squeaking. Then the footsteps again, and the door opening and slamming shut. Of course, there was no toilet paper in the stall, and it was not a clean pinch, as you can imagine. I had to use my Mad magazine. Alfred E. Newman has never been so disrespected. I exit the stall and see, in marker, written on the mirror, "See you outside," and it was signed Nitro. I'm born and bred in Maine. I've met a lot of guys who go by Nitro. Not a one do I want to meet alone at a restaurant in the middle of fucking nowhere. I'm terrified. I hatch a plan that I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to open the restroom's door and sprint to my car, not looking back. I just run. I hear a shuffle and footsteps behind me. Ah! I hear behind me. I left my car unlocked because it's a piece of shit, and I get right in. I get the car going, I do a bit of a burnout and speed off. I see in my rear view mirror the silhouette of a massive man. He threw his hat to the ground and began jumping up and down as I sped down the highway. I have no idea what this guy's intentions were, but this was easily a top 5 scary moment for me, and I can't really bring myself to poop in a public restroom since. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Let's get straight into story number 5, which is entitled, I Can Hear the Calling. My name does not matter for my story. All I need is help at the moment. I grew up at my family farm. It is a nice farm away from the city, but still not too far away. I live in Portugal. At this farm, all alone, and for the past 2 weeks, things have gone to shit. My parents have passed out in an accident near some castle ruins. The police said because of weather conditions at that time and the extreme fog of that area, their car crashed against some castle debris that fell on the road. That same story night, my grandmother since then started acting rather strange, culminating in the last 2 days when I simply could not take it anymore and argued with her. Before calling me an arsehole, let me tell you that she was not acting normal. To be normal would be to mourn the loss, but that didn't happen. Instead, she has been locked in her room writing on a damn diary, God knows what. At night, she wanders the house drawing strange glyphs. During the day, I find strange looking herbs and a foul liquid, sometimes already dried, on the floor. Enough is enough. I asked her what this was all about, and the response was protection. This farm is ancient and they want it back. Everything will be fine. I just need time. I thought she went mad. That is, until today. I heard some sounds during the night, but I ignored them. I wish I had not. In the morning, I went to see how she was doing. I found her dead on her bed, the journal by the table and a flask on top of it with a key. I called the authorities and made preparations. When everything was over, this was already 9 PM. I sat down on the couch, ignited the fireplace and tried to relax, but curiosity kept me awake and I started reading the damn journal, diary, whatever you want to call it. It explained the story of our family that started as an order of hunters that protected population centres at the time, and it was the family business. I just thought, nonsense. Then it started describing the layout of the farm with some structures that I'd never noticed, activated by some mechanism on a pillar. Then I found a bloodied note from my grandmother saying, whatever I do, don't listen to it. And if I do listen to it, before anything, push a certain brick near the front door. And always keep the flask and journal with me. I thought everything was just the madness from my grandmother and managed to sleep. That is until I heard something. I got scared. I am skeptical, but this time I was truly scared. I did like I was told. I grabbed the flask, put that in my pocket and the journal in a small backpack. I clicked the brick and it revealed a stand with a sword saying "Silver Burn." I freaked out, but the lullaby coming from the farm was worse. I grabbed the sword and went outside, shouted, "Who's there?" It was a woman, a damn beautiful woman. She asked if she could come in and to drop the sword. She was no robber, nor she just needed a place to spend the night. I said no. I was freaked by everything, to the doom with the woman staring at me with her eyes turning white ash, and I yelled, "Stand back, I don't want to hurt you." Man, big mistake I made. She lunged at me, but I sliced off a bit of her arm, only to see her lick the blood from the wound. I striked again, but she vanished into thin air. I ran to the farm structure that was described by my grandmother as a safe place. I entered, saw glyphs, just like at home, but bigger and more complex. Also, discovered an armor stand with some weird armor on it. Guys, please help. I'm locked in here, and I'm sure if I get out, that thing will get me. I passed again through the journal, and by the looks of it, it's a Bruxay. I don't know what this means, but it says drink the contents of the flask and strike hard. The journal ends there with some bloodstains. Guys, I'm not a fighter, but my dad always said I was some special kid, and one day he would tell me some secrets. Now, I get them, but I still don't know what to do. Help. Help. Wow, well, that's a first for me, guys. Apologies if it's not up to scratch. I hope you guys enjoyed it still. Please do let me know down in the comments, and like and share if possible. That would be marvelous. Again, guys, remember, be safe, not sorry.